Join as we learn together Chumash for Thursday, Parshas Vayakhel and Pekudei, when Vayakhel and Pekudei are combined on a non-leap year. We are now in the second part of the Torah readings, meaning there are two Torah readings combined, Vayakhel and Pekudei. So this would be the second part of the second Torah reading for the fifth day of the week, Thursday, Parshas Vayakhel and Pekudei. Yesterday we learned about the calculations of what the gold and silver were used for, and copper. Today we continue with the making of the garments, how they were instructed, and how they actually made the garments for the Kohen Gadol and the Kohanim. Chapter 38, verse 2. Chapter 39, verse 2. Vayas es ha'ephod, and they made the ephod. Tzav was made up of gold, tchelas of turquoise wool, vargamon purple wool, v'selah shani and scarlet wool, v'sheish mazar and twined linen. Minat tchelas vargamon. That's continuing into verse 3. Vayiraku, and they hammered as pache azav, the sheets of gold, v'kitetz psilim, then they cut it into threads, lasis b'seichat tchelas, that it should be intertwined together with the turquoise wool, and within the purple wool, and in the scarlet wool, and within the linen. This was a woven design. The very fact that they were able to take the gold and intertwine it with the other materials. Verse 3, Rashi, Vayiraku. The word Vayiraku comes from to the when God spread out the heavens, that He's in the second day of creation, there was the heavens above and the heavens below, and He took the heavens and spread them out over the water. The same terminology is used. V'radidu, and the Targum uses that He hammered it, tasin, made it into sheets. So yubenadid in minazov, they would take the gold, and they would make it into tasin dake, small sheets of gold. Kanu malamdech, over here the Torah is telling us, how would they actually intertwine the gold threads with the other types of material threads? And therefore the Torah explains to us how it was done. They would take the gold, they would make it then into very thin sheets, and then they would cut the sheets of gold in lengthwise, making it psilin, to make it into gold strands, which was then intertwined with each one, with the turquoise, with the purple, and with the scarlet, and with the linen. Each one was intertwined. This is the way it was made in the breastplate and in the ephod. As it says in those items, the material was also zav, gold as well. So how is it done? You would have one gold strand, with 6 strands of turquoise. So you had one gold together with 6 of the other kind of the material. Because each one of the other materials, it was double 6. The hazav, and the gold was chut hashvi, was the 7th, which was interwoven with the other one. So you have a total of 28 threads in each one of them, 4 kinds, 4 times 6, plus you have the 7 of the 7 strands of gold. So you make that 6 times 6 of each one, because in each one there was a strand of gold, which makes it a total of 28 strands, as we explained this previously in the Torah reading of Tetzaveh when we spoke about the garments of the high priest, of how God commanded Moshe to make them. Verse 4, the belt they made attached to its shoulder straps, which were attached on both sides, on both of its 2 ends. Chubar, it was connected. Verse 5, and the belt that it was fastened above it, Asher Alav, who can I say, who was made up of the same items, gold, turquoise, purple, scarlet, and linen twine, like God commanded Moshe. Verse 6, Vayasu es avnei ashoyim, and then they made the onyx stones, musabis mishpasei zav, that they were surrounded, that they had in them, they were encased with gold. Mufutachos, they were then engraved, petuchei choisam, as a signet ring. Al shmois b'nei Yisrael, the names of the Jewish of the tribes were engraved on each one of those stones. And then they took those gold stones that were then had these encased gold settings, and they put them on the shoulders of the ephod. Avnei Zikarin, they should be used as stones of remembrance. Livnei Yisrael, for the Jewish people. Kasher Tziva Hashem es Moshe, like God commanded Moses. Verse 8. Vayas es and then they made the breastplate. Ma'aseh Choyshev, this was made into a woven design. K'maseh ephod, it was made similar as the ephod was made, with the same materials. Zav, Tchelis, Vargam, V'telashani, V'sheitz Maz are made up of gold, turquoise, purple wool, scarlet wool, and of linen twined. Ravuayiyah, verse 9. The breastplate had to be made into a square. Kaful, it was then folded. Also, Sachoshen is how they made the breastplate. Zeres Arkoi, it was a span long. Zeres Rachbai, and a span width. Kaful, it was folded over. Verse 10. Vayimalu ve'arba'at turei, and then they filled it with arba'at turei oven. They filled it then with 4 rows of mounted gemstones. Tur oidem pitito varekas atur echad. The first row contained chameleon, emerald, and topaz. Then the second row, verse 11, Vatur Hasheni, and the second row, Neifech Saper V'Yalim, was kurnbuckle, sapphire, and a diamond. Verse 12, Vatur Shlishi, the third row was Zikron, agate, Leshem Shmei V'Achlama, and amethyst. Sorry for the mispronunciation, but that's the way we understand it. Vatur Arvi, and the fourth one is Tarshish Shoyam V'Yashvei, was aquamarine, onyx, and jasper. All of these were then mounted and encased in gold settings. Bimalu Isam, how they were inserted and encased from around it was gold around it, and then it sat in these gold inserts. Verse 14. Va'avanim al shmeis b'nei Yisrael heina, and these gems had the names of the 12 sons of Israel. Shteim Esrei, 12 of them, al shmeisam, on their names, betuchei choisam, they were like engraved as a signet ring, each al shmei, each person according to his name, l'shnei masar shafet, according to the 12 tribes. There were the 12 tribes that were on each one of the 12 stones, as well as it also had, as we mentioned in Parashat Tetzaveh, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Shiftei Ka. This way, it also mentioned all of the letters of the alphabet were on it, because as you know, in the 12 tribes, there were 2 letters of the alphabet that are not in any of the 12 tribes, which is Ches and Tes, and as sin as they were holy. So therefore, with the names Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Shiftei Ka, you then had all the alphabet on the stones of the Choshen. Verse 15, Vayasu as al Choshen, then they made on this breastplate Sharshris Gavlus. They made gold chains that were braided, Masi Ovis, that were braided like cords, Zav, Torah, made out of gold. Verse 16, Vayasu shtei mispritzei zav u'shtei tabis zav, and then they made 2 gold settings with 2 gold rings coming out of it. Vayitnu shtei tabois al shtei ksei sachoshen, and these 2 rings then were set on the 2 edges of the choshen, of the breastplate, which from there, as we're soon going to see in the next verse, the gold chains were coming out of. Vayitnu shtei avosis hazav al shtei tabois, and they put these 2 gold braids into the 2 rings, al ksei sachoshen, which were on the edge of the breastplate. Verse 18, and then they attached these 2 ends of the 2 braids on the 2 settings. They attached those to the shoulder straps of the ephod, al-mulpanav, that were facing him. So the shoulder straps came from the back, folded over to the front. Verse 19, and they made 2 gold rings, and they put them on the 2 edges of the breastplate. Asher al Ever ha'ephod baisa, which were on the edge of the faces of the ephod, on the inner part of the breastplate. That means within there was a fold. Inside the fold, they would put those 2 rings. From it, the 2 chains would come out and then connect to the top shoulder straps, as we see in the next verse. Verse 20. Vayasu shtei tabesav, and then they made 2 gold rings. Vayitnu al shtei ksisves ephod, and they put them on the 2 shoulder straps of the ephod, milmat on the bottom. Mimul pana, from facing, that means if you were facing the person wearing the ephod. L'umas michpartei, on the next to where they were joined above the shoulder, above the belt. Mimal l'cheshev ephod, above the belt of the ephod. So you had 2 rings on the top, 2 rings on the bottom, 2 rings on the top of the ephod, on the shoulder straps of the ephod, which then connected with the chains to the 2 rings that were coming out of the breastplate. 2 rings on the bottom of the breastplate that were connecting to the belt of the ephod, which kept it in place, like Rashi explained in Parshas Tetzaveh, that it shouldn't shake from place to place. Verse 21. They link the breastplate by its rings to the rings of the ephod, using a turquoise thread, that it should stay on the belt of the ephod, and the breastplate should never move from the ephod, like God commanded Moshe. This concludes the fifth Torah reading for Parshas Vayakhel and Pekudei together.